Everyone. Today is the 23rd of May, 2024. My name is Derek, author and webmaster of Gematrinator.com, and in today's video, I want to take a look at the ongoing NBA playoffs and discuss a little bit about why I think two teams in particular may be participating in this year's NBA Finals. Right now, the Boston Celtics are the favorite to go all the way and win their 18th championship in the history of the franchise. Now, you'll see here that Boston has not won the NBA championship since the year 2008, which means if they go on to the finals and win this year, it'll be 16 years since their last championship, and there is a chance they could even win the title on the 16th anniversary of that game. Now, curiously enough, the phrase 16 years has a numeric value of 160 in the reverse cipher of English Gematria. This method simply flips the alphabet backwards so that Z is 1 and A is 26. And how interesting is it that the Celtics are going up against the Pacers, the 6th seed? So here you have the 1 seed against the 6th seed. Furthermore, the 16th prime number is 53, a number divisible only by 1 and itself. And in the other conference, in the West, it's the 5 seed against the 3 seed, the Dallas Mavericks against the Minnesota Timberwolves. A couple of days ago, I did a video on the death of Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi and pointed out the connection to Dallas and why the Mavericks are in the finals this year, as Dallas is the city where JFK was killed. So there is a riddle for Dallas, and the Mavericks have a 1-0 lead after the game last night. But what I want to talk about is why I still favor the Timberwolves to get to the finals to play against the Celtics. Now, these aren't earth-shattering predictions, as both teams are favored, the home teams in their respective series. But what I want to talk to you about in this video is the absolutely remarkable alignments that connect Celtics coach Joe Mazzulla and his recently deceased father, Dan Mazzulla, to the Tower riddle that seems to connect to the NBA Finals. And if you stick around to the end of this video, you're going to see probably the largest 33 parade I've ever decoded on this channel. Just an absolute ridiculous amount of 33 that we'll look at. And 33 is the reduction gematria of the number 16. The reduction or Pythagorean method of English gematria simply uses the rules of numerology to drop every double-digit number to a single digit. Now, if you've been following my work over recent weeks, I've been talking a lot about the number 16 and its connections to the Tower card of the tarot deck. And significantly, I started talking about this riddle before I even knew that there was a new movie called Tarot that just came out on May 3rd. And it's not the only tarot riddle that's been going on, but certainly the big one that I've been following anyway. And all of this started back in April when it was announced that the tallest tower in the United States would be built in Oklahoma City, of all places. Oklahoma City was the best team in the West during the regular season this year and fell to the Mavericks in the second round. And we'll show how the Tower riddle deeply connects to the NBA. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit of background first. Joe Mazzulla was hired as the Boston Celtics head coach in 2022 and on an interim basis. And then several months later, he got a new contract and was named the official head coach in February of 2023. In April of 2020, Joe's father, Dan Mazzulla, who himself was a former basketball player and coach, passed away from cancer at the relatively young age of 61. Back in 2016, musician Prince passed away, and notice how Dan Mazzulla was born just 9 days before Prince. Prince, born in Minnesota, died in Minnesota, and now the Minnesota Timberwolves are making an unlikely run, perhaps towards the NBA Finals. Now, the NBA Finals this year begins on June 6th, or the date 6/6, which is a span of exactly 66 years after the birth of Prince. Dan Mazzulla, in 2020, died on a date with primary numerology of 66. In the Sumerian method of Gematria, which uses the alphabetic order, but multiplies everything by 6, the first perfect number, Minnesota sums to 660. And what we'll also talk about in this video is how this all connects to the Jewish holiday Tisha B'Av, which is celebrated on August 12th through the 13th this year. On the date of Tisha B'Av, Prince would have been 66 years and 66 days old. Tisha B'Av commemorating the destruction of the two temples, reminding us of the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center, where the two towers in New York City were destroyed. This all very significant to the tower riddle with the tarot. Using the S exception in reduction, Boston Celtics sums to 66. But in reverse, notice the 78, matching NBA Finals in the alphabetic order. Well, this year is the 78th season of NBA basketball. Prince died 8 years and 46 days before the start of the finals on June 6th. This is another number connected to the Tower Code. Recall on 9/11, Flight 175 struck the North Tower at 8:46 a.m., which marked the beginning of the terror attacks on that day. September 11th, of course, falling under the time of Virgo, and Virgo using Latin Gematria, a cipher which I consider to perhaps be the most significant in this study of the number lettering system. Virgo summing to 846. So this brings us to the Tower, the 16th card. Boston looking for their first title in 16 years. Well, Tisha B'Av primarily remembers the destruction of Solomon's temple by the Neo-Babylonians. And notice how in the language of Hebrew Gematria, the language where many people believe this code is to have originated, the first temple has Gematria of 1423. This is a prime number that connects to the current year in the calendar, 2024. Measuring from the date of the 9/11 attacks to the death of Prince was 14 years and 223 days. So not only do you get the same digits as the Gematria value, but this is also a span of 224 days after the anniversary of 9/11. And the 224 stands out for another reason. Joe's father, Dan Mazzulla, died on the 22nd of April, or 22/4. Now, the date of Mazzulla's death in 2020 was significant to the moon. And at the end of the video, we'll talk a bit more about how the moon syncs up. But notice how April 22nd was the very first day of a new moon, as this began brown lunation number 1204. The word 16th sums to 124, the tower, the 16th card. These are also the same 3 digits in the date that Prince died, April 21st, or 421. Prince and Mazzulla dying just 1 day apart on the calendar. Joe Mazzulla, meanwhile, the coach of the Celtics, born on a date with standard numerology of 124. And check out how well his name syncs up with this code in Gematria. In standard English Gematria, the cipher that most closely mirrors Hebrew and Greek, the name Joe Mazzulla has matching 2077 and 56 Gematria with the Tower 16, just as it's written on the card. If Joe Mazzulla wraps up the Eastern Conference Finals and wins 4 games to win the NBA Finals, it'll give him a total of 27 playoff victories during his career. And in reduction, both forwards and backwards, Tower equals 27. However, his full name, as it's listed on our trusty Wikipedia here, I say that a bit tongue-in-cheek, the name Joseph Mazzulla sums to 185 and 193. These are the same numbers found in Solomon's Temple and Second Temple, which are the two that are commemorated for Tisha B'Av. Also, World Trade Center, the American version, 185. On top of that, the name Mazzulla and Joseph Mazzulla both match Twin Towers, 104 and 59. When his father died in 2020, Joe was exactly 1,660 weeks old. 166 is the ordinal value of Twin Towers. So let's check this code out in regards to the number 68. When World Trade Center construction began, it was on the 6th of August, or 6/8, of the year 68. In standard Gematria, the tower sums to 1068, whereas in Latin, the National Basketball Association is 1068. These numbers were found in Prince's life and death, born on a date with 1680 numerology, and then he died at his home in Chanhassen, which in reverse Sumerian is 1068. Boston, of course, plays their home games in the state of Massachusetts, which has matching 168 ordinal Gematria with New York City. New York City, New York, also 1068 with Fibonacci numbers. This year, June 6th, the NBA Finals, measuring from that date to the date that Tisha B'Av is celebrated, is 68 days, both with and without the end date included. In reduction Gematria, Joseph Mazzulla has matching 68 Gematria with Solomon's Temple and Herod's Temple, the names of the first and second temples. 68, a number connected to championship basketball, both words 68 in reduction. And when the finals begins on June 6th, it'll be exactly 68 weeks after Joe Mazzulla signed his contract extension in February of last year. Now, if you turn the number 68 upside down and measure to the date that he was first hired in September, you get exactly 89 weeks, which is 68 upside down. However, I want to look at the 68th prime number and show you how important this is as well. 337, 68th prime. This year's Tisha B'Av falls 337 days after September 11th. In standard Gematria, World Trade Center is 1337, whereas New York City is 2337. Prince died 5,337 days after 9/11. And when Joe Mazzulla became the official Celtics coach, his father would have been 3,377 weeks old on the dot. So the number 911 flipped upside down gives us the number 116. Mazzulla was named the official coach exactly 1 year and 16 weeks before June 6th's Game 1 of the finals. On that same date, his father Dan would be 24,116 days old. In fact, the final starts 1 month and 16 days after the anniversary of Prince's death. Prince again passing away in Chanhassen, Minnesota, reportedly. When abbreviated, this city sums to 119. And this brings us back to the whole Tisha B'Av riddle. As Tisha B'Av is celebrated on the 9th day of the 11th month on the Hebrew civil calendar. And remarkably, Tisha B'Av equals 9/11 in Latin. On the Gregorian calendar in America, the 9th day of the 11th month is November 9th, which equals 1109. This, of course, the same digits as September 11th, which is the date that the two towers in the United States were destroyed. So Tisha B'Av with this 911 value, well, this is another prime number, the 156th prime. Boston Celtics is 156 in the standard alphabetic order. And the finals begins 1,506 days after Dan Mazzulla passed away. Prince's full name, Prince Rogers Nelson, gives us 1560 in Sumerian. Well, in ordinal, the number 33 is 156. And this brings us to the major part of the riddle. Think about how 2001 falls 33 years after 1968, when construction began. With capital letters, a cipher called caps mixed, maintaining the alphabetic order but mixing capital with small letters. Twin Towers sums to 330. When Joe Mazzulla became the official head coach of Boston, it was exactly 33 weeks after his birthday, and 33 months and 3 weeks after the death of his father. In fact, Joe was born when his dad was 30 years and 33 days old. His father Dan died 330 days after his own birthday. The Tower of the Tarot is card number 16, which is the first number with 33 Gematria. And the Celtics play in Massachusetts, which is one of just 3 states, with reduction Gematria of 33. Joe Mazzulla was born 30 years, 3 weeks, and 3 days after Prince, and was 333 months, 3 weeks old when Prince died. The NBA Finals starts exactly 3 weeks and 3 days before his birthday. In reduction, NBA Finals sums to 33, and this year's Finals kicks off 303 sidereal months after the 9/11 attacks. A sidereal month measuring the lunar orbit of the moon in relation to the stars. The 33rd prime number is even found here. The finals begins exactly 1 year and 37 weeks after Mazzulla first was hired as Boston's coach. I've long talked about the mystical connection of the number 33 to the number 226. Back in the year 1993, the World Trade Center was bombed on 2/26, or February 26th. And the big connection here is that when you write out the number 33, these two numbers in ordinal, 156 and 141, both sum to 226 in the alphabetic order. Well, so does the name Prince Rogers Nelson. Prince's full name also has this 226. which in standard gematria tends to be a number of sacrifice. This tracing all the way back to the Bible, as it was believed that Jesus was crucified at 33. Well, crucifixion of Jesus equals 226. When Dan Mazzulla died, Prince would have been exactly 22,600 days old. Who's writing the script? I wish I could tell you. Now, if you go back in time 33 years before this year's NBA Finals, you get to the year 1991. Joe Mazzulla was born 10,991 days after his father. Does this mean that he'll be playing the Timberwolves in the finals? Timberwolves equals 1991 in Latin. For the very last part of this video, I want to talk a little bit about the moon and some significant connections related to that. Now, if you look up the width of the moon in miles, you find it's exactly 2160. Now, this says 2159, but if you use the equatorial diameter of the moon at its equator, you get within 1% of 2,160. These represents the digits 216. And 216 is 6 times 6 times 6. 666, a very, very important number of the moon. Well, Prince died in the year 2016, whereas Daniel E. Mazzulla, Joe's father, was born on the date leaving 216 days in the year, and his full name, Daniel E. Mazzulla, equals 2106. When Joe Mazzulla became the permanent head coach of the Celtics, it was on February 16th, or 216. The NBA Finals begins 20 months and 16 days after September 22nd, the date he was first hired on an interim basis. When you write out 2,160 miles, just as the diameter of the moon is, notice the ordinal value of 423. This is no coincidence, I assure you, as in standard gematria, the moon also sums to 423. And a quick look at this bare bones spreadsheet that I built to analyze the numerology of the finals. If Boston wins 4 games in the NBA Finals, this means they will have 423 playoff victories in franchise history. So that definitely stands out. There's not a whole lot in the rest of the teams that really punched me in the gut. But another number I want to talk about here is right next to it, 4,057. If the Celtics win 7 more games, which would give them the NBA championship, they'll have a total of 4,057 wins in franchise history. So let's quickly touch on that number, 4,057. Notice how this is the 560th prime. I can't say for sure if this matters, but 56 was a number I touched on earlier, as Joe Mazzulla and the Tower 16 both sum to 56. But what's actually more interesting is that if you drop this 0, as numerologists are prone to do, you instead get the digit 457. And this is another prime number. Notice how it's the 88th prime number. And in Latin gematria, Massachusetts sums to 808. So there's definitely something to that. Oh, here's the riddle. Okay, so in 2008, the Boston Celtics wrapped up the NBA Finals on June 17th, or 6/17. 617 just so happens to be the main area code in Boston, Massachusetts. This is another prime number, the 113th. And of course, Boston, one of the two most successful cities in the National Basketball Association, along with the Los Angeles Lakers, and the National Basketball Association with this 113 as well. Now, it's actually possible that if the Celtics were to win the finals in Game 5 this year, it would fall on June 17th, that same day, exactly 16 years after their last championship, which would just be perfect, given the Tower riddles lately. But here's another reason why I favor that date over any other. Because if you measure from the death of Dan Mazzulla, Coach Joe's father, to Game 5 of the NBA Finals on the 17th, you get a span of 4 years and 57 days. And it would be Boston's 4,057th win. Notice how this is also 216 weeks. We touched on this number in relation to Prince. However, it could also end in Game 4, a sweep. This is still 216 weeks, but more interesting is the 1,515 days. Because in standard Gematria, the number 33 sums to 1515, and no doubt 33 is the absolute driller in this decode. So I can't say for sure when it'll end, or who knows, maybe Boston will get upset in the Eastern Conference Finals. As always, all predictions wrong or your money back on this channel. So, oh, look at that. Joe Mazzulla also dead on the 113th day of the year. So, as I say in almost every video, there's always more. June 14th, also the 166th day, matching Joe's age when his dad died. Like twin towers. Another note, too, is that June 14th marks the first Plutonian anniversary of America. So if you measure back from Game 4 of the finals to Independence Day in the United States, it's exactly 1 Plutonian year. And furthermore, that's also Donald Trump's 78th birthday. So is it possible for the Boston Celtics, 78, to close out the NBA's 78th season on Trump's birthday, number 78? Again, there's multiple riddles, there's multiple dates, probably multiple teams that could win, but these are definitely the most fascinating riddles I found in my initial glances. And just thought I'd share these with you as the finals gets underway in a couple weeks here. All right, everyone, that'll do it for this one. Please feel free to check the links in the description for more, particularly more content related to the ongoing Tower riddle that's been playing out. All right, everyone, peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.